delusion and falsehood always has a serious cost, but the cost is usually delayed. So here's a principle of life for you, is that you cannot get away with falsehood forever. It's going to come back. It's going to come back and bite you. So part of developing the good life is having a long time horizon, looking into the future and not just into the near term. And therefore, by looking into the far term, you start to take truth seriously as a value, even when almost nobody else around you does, and almost nobody else around you will. You will automatically make yourself unique and different by seriously valuing truth and committing your life to that. People around you are not going to applaud you for doing this for the most part. They're going to be resentful. They're going to be bitter. They're going to lash out at you. And they're going to try to, crabs in the bucket. They're going to try to pull you back in the bucket as you're crawling out. They're going to try to pull you back into their fantasies and their delusions and their falsehoods. And you need to have the conviction to crawl out of that bucket despite people pulling down on you. That's why it's so difficult. That's why there's so few truthful people out there. And, rarely when you see a very truthful person as a leader, he or she has a challenging life, and they get a lot of stones thrown at them. They even get killed and assassinated or imprisoned by their fellow man. Why? Because, truth tellers have to be killed and imprisoned because otherwise they're going to spoil the fantasy of society at large. So there is a pain in proactively seeking out truth every day, but this pain is relatively minor and manageable compared to the pain of avoiding truth for decades and letting that falsehood and delusion snowball. It's better to pay the cost a bit every single day than it is to have it all blow up in your face a decade later. So rather than avoiding the relationship problems that exist in your marriage day after day after day and just sweeping them under the rug for a decade until your marriage just becomes completely toxic and untenable and ends up in a nasty divorce, rather than doing it that way, how about you just proactively work on being more truthful in your marriage all the time, and then maybe you can actually have a successful marriage a decade later. You see? But that requires you actually doing work and incurring a little bit of sting every single day within your marriage. Most people just want to have marriage be easy. And then if you do it that way, then it's going to blow up in your face. So start to notice where in your life you avoid facing truth. Notice the excuses and defense mechanism your mind employs to avoid facing truth. Study these defense mechanisms within yourself and other people, and go against the force of primordial avoidance. You have a primordial avoidance of truth. And there's a very deep spiritual, metaphysical reason for why that is. Because your entire identity is a fantasy and a falsehood. Your human identity, your finite identity. So use introspection to notice and feel that primordial avoidance of truth within you. Here are some powerful questions for you to contemplate that will help you to do this, to stop avoiding truth. So question number 1 is, where am I avoiding truth? Question number 2, how am I avoiding truth? Number 3, how can I become more truthful? Number 4, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I value truth in every situation? Number 5, how could I increase my valuing of truth? Number 6, what costs have I paid for avoiding truth? You want to reach a level not just where you accept truth begrudgingly, but where you actually start to love truth. And you start to love this entire process of seeking the truth, unraveling the truth, And you even develop a sort of a more sophisticated mind and palate, shall we say, for the bittersweet aspects of pursuing the truth. It's like you feel that sting, but it's sort of like when you're going to the gym, when you first start going to the gym, that burn in your muscles you feel when you're pumping iron, as they say, is it's kind of uncomfortable and painful and you want to avoid it. But really, to be a successful weightlifter, you got to do sort of like the Arnold thing where you flip that around and you actually turn that sting of stretching your muscles and really working your muscles to exhaustion. You have to turn that sting and that burn into something you love. And then you can become a successful weightlifter. Well, it's the same thing with truth. I want you to envision 10, 20 years from now, you're going to reach a point in this process of, pursuing truth so much on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, decade-long basis that you reach a point a decade from now where you're just like, you actually are in love with tracking down the truth in every situation in life that you're in. And you've built up such a momentum of doing this as though you've been going to the gym really hard every single day for a decade, that now you're so strong. Your capacity to handle truth is so strong that you're becoming untouchable. It becomes difficult for anything in reality to faze you anymore because you're so good at stomaching truth, to the point where rather than it hurting you or offending you or triggering you or causing you to be afraid or to recoil or to turn into some sort of victim, you're so strong that it expands you and it deepens your love for reality, and it is your spiritual path and process. Try to imagine how good that would feel, how strong you would feel, how grounded you would feel, how reliable you would be as a human being, how much others would look up to you and depend on you and trust your leadership if you develop this capacity. But you're only going to develop this capacity from a sort of a daily, weekly practice for years and years and years and decades. Here's a question for you. What are all the areas in your life where you have been avoiding facing the truth? Sit down with that one for an hour and just contemplate. Sit down with a piece of paper and a notepad and just contemplate that for an hour. Make a long list. And then also ask yourself, why have you been avoiding truth in all these areas? And of course, the answer is fear. You fear what you will find if you go looking at the truth. You fear that the truth will shatter your fantasies, and you don't want to give those up.